John Adams said, "We have a government of laws and not of men." Boy, did that just come under attack. Do you know what would have happened if this had gone the other way? Oh, it was never going to happen. You don't know that. You don't know that. They could have decided to hear it, and who knows what happens. You know, that's how we were back in 2000. There was obviously a litigable issue there, and there were problems with the machines and the counts and all that. I'm not saying the case did or didn't come out the right way, but there was a shock that it was taken at all. So nothing's ever for sure, especially today, especially with someone like Trump playing with minds. A conspiracy carrying the weight of the White House, 19 states, more than 100 members of Congress. But thank God the institution stood. America won tonight. Without democracy, this country is nothing. But what should the consequence be to the men and women who tried to bring it down? And what happens next? Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro brings unmatched perspective from inside this fight. First of all, congratulations. I will let people in on a little bit of off-the-record talk. After the interview last night, I said, no pressure, AG, it's just the entire democracy resting on your shoulders. And it was kind of true. What do you think of the result? What do you think of what the aftermath should be?
Well, look, Chris, I'm very happy, obviously, that the court ruled the way they did. We asked the court to quickly rebuke Texas and Trump and their enablers, and they did. They stood for the rule of law, our institutions held, and yet again, we have a court of law that has seen through what this president is trying to do in this country, and instead of siding with him, the court sided with the rule of law. Now, those who enabled him, that's a whole other story and a whole other conversation. But I will say, just, you know, in terms of how I'm feeling tonight, obviously I'm happy, but I'm also sad and angry. I'm sad at how the situation has devolved. I'm angry at this president. I'm angry at the people that are enabling him. And boy, oh boy, Chris, do we have a lot of work to do in this country to repair the damage that he's inflicted here.
Amen. Amen. Not obviously, Josh is Jewish. You know, we're going through the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah, second night. And I used it as a metaphor last night, not just because I'm the shpuka and I wish you well as my Jewish brother, but we need something bigger than ourselves, the strength of the collective, maybe, to come together to get us through a dark time. Do you think this is over? There are a couple other cases out there, but what happens on Monday when the electors meet? What happens when Congress meets on the 6th to certify that vote?
Well, let me give you a legal answer, and then let me give you kind of a real-life answer in the world of Donald Trump. Legally, it's over. I've been saying that for a while. Once the state's certified, and then come Monday, the electors will ratify, and then, of course, Joe Biden will be sworn in on January 20th. That is the truth. What we don't know, of course, is what Donald Trump is going to do next. And rest assured, if he tries to do anything that impacts the will of the people of Pennsylvania, the will of the people in this country, I'll be there to defend their rights and to defend the will of the people. But in terms of what comes next, I think we have to ask ourselves and really question how 17 attorneys general and 120 some members of the U.S. House jumped so quickly on a junk lawsuit that ultimately would have hurt them in the long run. Yet they can't get their act together to jump quickly.
Explain how.
To deal with
How would have it hurt them, just so people know?
Yeah, I mean, just take this to its logical conclusion. If the Supreme Court would have bought Texas's ridiculous argument, that would have meant that going forward, any state could invalidate the votes of any other state if they happened to disagree with the result. It would have been the end of our representative democracy, which is why I called it what it was, a seditious abuse of the judicial process. That's exactly what transpired.
And a lot of Republicans won congressional seats. They either held or they won new ones. And if the vote had been invalidated, so would their elections been. You would have to think logically. What do you say to those men and women, by the way, who join this, who say, hold on, we have a right to sue. That's all we did here. We just played it out. That's all we did. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I think they're spineless. And in some cases, I think they're just downright stupid. Think about this for a second, Chris. There were members of the Pennsylvania congressional delegation that signed on to Texas's ridiculous lawsuit that would have invalidated their own elections. They ran the same time Donald Trump and Joe Biden did. They actually went to court to undermine their own elections. I mean, you really have to stop and ask yourself what has happened in this country. We have a lot of work to do to repair this damage. And I think a lot of people need to look in the mirror, a lot of people who signed on to this, and ask themselves, did I take an oath to the Constitution or did I take an oath to Donald Trump? Because right now they're acting like all they do is serve Donald Trump, not the people of this country.
Now, I don't think this should happen. I don't think it will happen. I don't think we're in a good enough place to even consider this kind of line of integrity in our public service. But in a different world, you bring a lawsuit that you know is frivolous. And by the way, I don't know why any of these suits weren't sanctioned as frivolous, by the way, not one of them. None of the lawyers, none of these suits, they get thrown out of court, they keep doing it, and no one sees it as frivolous. I think it's the definition of frivolous, but that's on the bar, I guess. But don't you see a world where people who tried to do this in full knowledge of its falsity might be breaching their oath to uphold the law and the Constitution by trying to sabotage it and may expose themselves to removal?
I think there are real questions about whether or not these people that signed on breached their oath of office. I think there are certainly questions about whether the lawyers involved in this case should be sanctioned. Questions I'll share with you here tonight, Chris, that we are carefully reviewing in the Office of Attorney General here in Pennsylvania to determine whether or not we should attempt to bring sanctions against these lawyers. These are serious things. You are not permitted under the rules of professional conduct to waste the court's time, to file frivolous lawsuits, to knowingly lie in court. All of those things were done by the lawyers that brought these cases and by those who enabled him.
Josh Shapiro, keep lighting candles, brother. We need it. We need it right now. Thank you for lighting the way tonight. The best to you and your family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Same to you and yours.
Now look, two big